Hello world, my name is Amelia, and as you can tell, this video is going to be a little bit different as I am filming from an undisclosed location, but more on that later. As I mentioned in a previous video, I was going to be talking about more of a personal situation that was going on in my life that at the time was just a little bit too sensitive to really share. I'm going to go ahead and apologize because very likely this video is going to be a little longer. This is actually my second time filming this video, so hopefully, who knows. So I actually have this prepared out how I want to say it down on my laptop here, so hopefully this turns out really well. So what is this situation in particular? To put it in the most simplest of terms, I have spent the last year almost nearly to the day with a mentally abusive roommate. I wish I could say that this was an isolated incident. However, that not the case, as this person, in my opinion, as well as many other people's opinion, makes a career of being a sadistic individual. It was around this time last year that I was in need of making some extra money, and I decided to rent out a couple bedrooms in my house. I met this potential roommate on Facebook, and she shaped herself up to be in this perfect little angel. She flattered me and made me feel so good about myself. Absolutely. That was the first phase of her plan. Right away there was warning signs that I should have caught on to, but I believe my innocence got in the way of the situation, and I wanted to think the best of this person, which usually I want to think the best of a lot of people. That's just kind of part of my nature, I guess. I tried to put a paper lease in front of her, and consistently she would refuse signing it, trying to cite that many of the clauses in my agreement were unlawful. When I had asked for examples, she would say that I had to find them for myself. Obviously, that was just part of her deflection. Initially, we agreed upon a 3-month lease plan. Basically, it was like a probationary period. But despite her attempts to evade the signing, I had given her the benefit of the doubt and believed that she would hold up to a verbal agreement and move out at the end of March. But obviously that did not happen, or else we would not be having this video right now. To try to sum up what happened for the sake of time, she used mental abuse tactics known as gaslighting. I'm going to read right now what Psychology Today describes gaslighting as. Gaslighting is a tactic in which a person or entity, in order to gain more power, makes a victim question their reality. It works much better than you think. Anyone is susceptible to gaslighting, and it is a common technique of abusers, dictators, narcissists, and cult leaders. It is done slowly so the victim doesn't realize how much they've been brainwashed. The term gaslighting actually comes from a British play titled Gaslight in 1938 by British dramatist Patrick Hamilton. In the play, the husband, Jack Manningham, plays a psychological warfare with his wife Bella, convincing her that she has gone insane. Towards the end of the play, he convinces her that she is imagining the gas lights in the house are dimming, which it actually turns out that the gas lights are dimming because he's turning on the gas lights elsewhere in the house. It's a very interesting play from what I was reading from the synopsis. Some of the signs of somebody who's gaslighting you is telling blatant lies, denying things were ever said, using things that the victim holds dear as ammunition, throwing positive reinforcement to confuse projection. I'm actually going to, I will link to that Psychology Today article down in the comments, just so, because it's actually a very good article. It talks about It's called 11 Signs of Gaslighting, and it was actually a very huge eye-opener for me. If I am to be honest with myself, the gaslighting started from the day one. And I didn't even know it. There was obviously a lot of other events that took place throughout the first half of the year. The most notable was some provoking on the part of a different roommate I had, as well as her truck breaking down and eventually being stolen from my driveway. The first half of the year was probably the most emotionally grinding. However, I would actually say that was just part of her plan, her intent on breaking me and manipulating me towards her will. And I can honestly say that it was working, because around November is when I finally started questioning my sanity and started to wonder if I should check myself into a mental institution. That is just to kind of prove the effectiveness of gaslighting on an individual. Something I want to touch on in this moment is how I might appear on camera to be okay. However, I think I don't quite know how to feel. I'm still very emotionally scarred from the situation, and it's going to take me some time to recover from this abusive person. Something I had to come to terms with in the first place was that this even happened. To acknowledge some of the things, I had to fall back on some positive reinforcements to know that I was not crazy, that I really was a sane individual. I don't think I want to spend too much time just going over the details of what just happened over this past year. For example, I know it's kind of a funny way of going into this. I was actually sexually assaulted by my roommate back in July. I did attempt to pursue a protection order. It was bad enough that I had to go over a very detailed testimony of what happened throughout the past few months trying to fight that whole situation. So you can imagine how just having to go over the details of just this past year can actually even be hard for me over camera. But I believe it's important that I give some basic outlines just for the historical context. But I need to try to focus on the now and looking forward to the future instead of dreading on the past. I did mention I did try to get that protection order, which is really sad about my situation, that almost every attempt that I tried to get my sadistic roommate out, I was met with roadblocks. First off, when I had perfectly legit altercations, where my roommate threatened to physically harm me, and all the judge would do is give me a hearing 2-3 weeks out from when requesting it. Even though I had plenty of audio recordings and police reports, there was more than enough evidence that I could present to show a clear pattern of manipulation and control on my roommate's part. And however, because there was a flaw in our legal system, I had to put into words. I was limited down to a very limited small box of writing what had been happening and making this small statement that really, honestly, in my opinion, does not grasp what is really going on in a situation. Not to mention, they don't even look at police reports. Even though they try to encourage you to provide police reports, it's messed up. And as I understand it, this is a problem that's actually pretty consistent across the United States. My county is not the only county with these issues, where people like me go without the relief from their attackers. I was recently informed by an abuse advocate that there is a program that started up in Minnesota by the name of Blueprint for Safety. And apparently, sometime next year or so, they are supposed to be coming to my county to help connect like the different departments and things like that, to help, speed up responsiveness, to help make the proper connections so that maybe cases like these, they can detect signs of these things earlier, punish repeat offenders and stuff like that. It's very interesting, and again, I will put a link down in the description for their website. They have a little video about it, and it was very interesting. Based on their mission statement, I do feel that they could have possibly caught on to what my roommate was doing to me, and quite possibly my roommate could have gotten more severe punishments or more than just a slap on the wrist. But that's not to be seen because I got some pretty chump change in this situation. Throughout the past year, I tried almost everything to get my roommate out. I tried evictions, and as I said, I tried a protection order more than twice, actually. And it seems like nothing ever worked. And I can guarantee you, anything you could suggest to me here in the comment section or in person, very likely I tried it. And no, I cannot just kick her out and change the locks. That is actually illegal in my county, and I could serve jail time for that. Just making sure that people are aware of that. What was probably the most upsetting in the fact is that there were so many people that recognized that I was in a bad situation and couldn't do anything about it. I had a therapist, I had a psychologist, I had 5 different social workers who I all talked to and recognized what was going on and had absolutely no power to do anything, let alone go to a judge and recommend I get granted a protection order. I think it's probably the biggest failure of all. How is it that a therapist can report when somebody is a danger to themselves or that they are a danger to someone else? You know, so like, but then when somebody sits there and says, well, this person is a danger to me, they can't do anything about it. That I totally can't comprehend. As I said earlier, it took me some time to comprehend what happened, especially in the terms of I was sexually assaulted. And my roommate would make threats that if I was to actually seek help, that I was going to regret it. And matter of fact, she made good on one of those threats on that same day by, because I did eventually call the police over a different situation, and she had intentionally injured her leg, called the police, and then tried to claim that I hurt her. Through, fortunately, the fact that I had video cameras in my home, I was able to proving that I was innocent. Thank God for that one. But that just reinstilled in me the fact that she quite possibly could make good on her threats. I had a mental process to work through. I had fear, I had regret. I seriously didn't think there was any reason to try saying that my experience is any less than somebody who was raped. It wasn't until about October that I finally began on a path that has brought me where I am today. I finally filed for a protection order and got serious about trying to push it through. I hired an attorney because I really didn't feel like I knew the navigation of the system to get where I needed to be. And I waited and waited. My roommate was to be served by the court server, and to my disappointment, the court server, in my opinion, was obstructing the justice. In the 2 weeks that the court server had to get my roommate served, I had only seen him once on my front door camera. I had even called the offices to verify what dates he had been out there, and they claimed that he had been out to my house 4 times. Again, I repeat, I only saw him once. And I will also remind you that my roommate sat unemployed, with the exception, I'm on the first floor, by the way, if you can hear beeping and talking. With the exception of mowing a few yards in my neighborhood, my roommate basically sat on unemployment for the past year. So there was absolutely no reason why this court server was not able of getting her served. And because he failed to serve her the first time, the hearing ended up getting continued to December 8th, which means they ended up pushing it forward 30 freaking days, which in my opinion is again a sign of a broken legal system. When you have somebody trying to get a protection, 30 days is one thing in a lot of other situations. That's a whole nother matter in a situation where somebody like me is saying this person is abusing me, and you're going to push it forward 30 days. And then yet again, in this whole entire 30 days, I only saw the court server once. Had 30 days to serve her. And once. And during that once, he had an opportunity to serve her. And she outright lied to him that she was me. And that's a whole nother can of worms. And I'm not even going to get into that right now for the sake of time. I finally had enough when the deadline to get her served finally came. I had enough and I called the police to get her served. They came out and within a matter of 3 hours, I had papers in her hand. I had to go down to the police station. I had to fill out some stuff. It was crazy. It was not a pleasant situation. And afterwards, she went crazy on me for a few days. Matter of fact, to the point that she actually not only destroyed some additional stuff in my house, like destroyed some Ethernet cables, she decided to empty the contents of my freezer. When she finally calmed down, she decided to talk civilly with me, and she had decided to move out on her own. She had been very adamantly asking me to give her till the 22nd. It took me a few days to decide, and I had to also talk it over with my attorney, but eventually we had decided that it was in our best interest that I dismiss the case, and in exchange she signed a no-contact stipulation agreement, which, as I understand, while talking to some other people, can actually carry more weight in the legal system, because apparently something about violating a no-contact stipulation agreement can actually be charged as a felony. I don't really know the details of it, and it would be very interesting to learn more about it, but it was definitely very interesting. So the agreement basically states the same things that an order of protection would give me. She's basically agreeing that effective tomorrow, which is Sunday, today is Saturday, that my order of protection will go into effect. It also states that if she decides to violate any of the clauses in the order, that I have the right to basically go straight down to the county office and get granted an ex parte on the spot, which I think is great, and that gives me some power. It gives me some control over the situation. And not to mention, the no contact stipulation agreement has no expiration. Basically, I don't have to renew it. It's perpetually good for me. Everything was fine until this past Thursday, when suddenly she decided to start going crazy on me again. Again, one of those situations where I can't explain what happened. Like, she all of a sudden started getting like over complimenting by that afternoon. And from my experience from this past year, as soon as she starts doing that, then I'm like, oh great, I know what the next thing is. And by that evening, she was stomping around my house, banging, breaking things, which, by the way, she broke a chalice that she was going to be leaving behind, literally took it and smashed it on my countertop. And she was stomping around the house, calling me a liar and a thief. I was sitting in my office literally hearing, "You're a liar, you're a thief. You're a liar, you're a thief." That's all I consistently heard. And that kind of plays into what I was talking about with her gaslighting me from the past year. It's kind of the thing, you know, repetitive words, repetitive things like that to kind of grind me down emotionally. I tried to ignore her and just tell myself, just one more full day of this. It's almost over. She was supposed to be moving out today, by the way. So I went to bed, and then right at about midnight, I woke up to use the bathroom, and I could still hear her banging around the house. I could still hear those dreaded words. As I went to go on the toilet, I was sitting on the toilet just minding my own business, and all of a sudden I hear her shout through the doorway. She says, "You better stay on your side or else I'm going to mace you." I have already informed her that I am done with mercy, and at this point I immediately called the police. They came out, and at first, to my disappointment, I have had to deal with the fact that I kind of feel like the police in my city can kind of act like I'm inconveniencing them. Like they don't always want to do things to help me. But then after she started aggravating them, and I ultimately told them that I want to press charges for her making threats to mace me, they decided to arrest her. They took her off to jail that evening, and I finally got some sleep, and I finally got some much needed rest. However, the next morning she comes stomping back into my house, and nothing had changed. She was still repeating, "You are a liar, you are a thief," over and over again. Which, by the way, she apparently told them the night before that I was a thief. And when they asked her, "What did she steal from you?" apparently she told the police that I stole a gun from her. Which, I supposedly, as it seems like that was part of what led into them also suspecting more from her. That afternoon on Friday, yesterday, I finally called my abuse advocate, and I explained that I did not feel safe in my house because she was banging around and all this other stuff. I was actually trying to exercise my no contact stipulation agreement, which kind of had some clauses in it about her not contacting me. But ultimately, they just suggested that it was probably in my best interest to go somewhere else, to get out of the house. And I was afraid to do that because I'm very protective of my property. I'm very protective of my home. I don't want to leave my home. But because I didn't have anywhere to go, they offered to put me up in a hotel for the weekend. Which now explains why I am here in this undisclosed location. As of filming this video, she is most of the way out of my house. I was hoping that she was going to be all the way moved out today, but after some things did not go to plan, which is not honestly a surprise, she's got to come back in the morning to get some few last things, and then she will be officially out tomorrow. And I will be finally free of her. I think what is most sad of this whole situation is that I never officially got help from the legal system or any professionals. This all really came down to her finally deciding to just release her claws on her own. She's now gone off, and she's going to be going on to her next victim. She's not even going to get so much as a slap on her wrist. She will be allowed, and on the other hand, I'm going to have to spend the next few months recovering. I'm the one who's been scarred out of this situation. She might sit there and be like, "Oh my gosh," because she sat there, and when she left, she tried to sit there and say things like, "Oh, she's been scarred out of the situation." It's like, no. You're getting off scot-free. I'm the one who now has to live with this whole thing. There has been damage to my home. I have lost possessions. And on top of that, I have literally lost a part of my body. I mentioned that she emptied my freezer just a couple weeks ago after I served her by the police. Something that was in my freezer after I went through my surgery this summer, the hospital let me keep my testicles from the surgery. And they were in a vacuum sealed bag, and I stuck them in my freezer. Yeah, I didn't really have any plans for them, but they were in there. And she knew it, because after I confronted her about it, she very well knew that she threw them out. And something else that she did is that she makes this habit of throwing incriminating evidence in other people's trash. She'll literally empty the trash cans at my house in order to avoid me finding evidence and stuff like that. I don't know if she like either throws it into the gas station's trash behind my house or neighbors or something like that. To this day, I don't know what happened to them. They just vanished. And honestly, it's probably one of the single, I would put it up there with the sexual assault. The sexual assault and me literally losing a part of my body is probably two of the most scarring things that have come out of this past year. And to think I haven't even brought up until now the whole COVID situation, because COVID only made it harder for me to get her out. The insanity of my roommate is beyond comprehension. And I know she knew what she was doing. She knew exactly where the line was drawn in the sand. She knew exactly how far she had to go. And to prove the uncomputable logic of this individual, she would claim that because she was a woman, she couldn't be sexist, she couldn't be transphobic, she couldn't be homophobic, or couldn't even commit sexual assault. She worked her way into every crevice of my life, to even one point that I even had an amazing new roommate back in November, and she intentionally scared the new roommate off and then tried to tell me that it was all my fault. During a recent conversation with an abuse advocate, they told me that they detected that I was now dealing with symptoms of PTSD. And I would agree to that assessment because I'm very jumpy and scared that at any moment my abusive roommate could just walk in on me. That's why, even though technically she's not even in my house anymore, I opted to still come back here to the hotel. This fight is not over, and sadly it's going to take time for me to heal. I've even debated if this is a sign that I need to possibly move out of my home and move on to somewhere else. Just completely leave my old life behind. And just to prove how scared I was of her. After I was sexually assaulted back in July, I had put a door up in my hallway to completely separate myself from the rest of the house. Anyways, so thank you for sitting with me on this long video. Let's hope maybe you were sitting or standing, I don't know what you were doing, and following with me on this journey. I hope it gave you a great little glance at what has been going on with me for this past year, and I would really hope to make up a follow-up video in the near future as I work through his recovery and make decisions. I do have another situation that's going on that, again, I can't share any details about, but hopefully by sometime in March, that's going to be something that'll be resolved. And don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on my social media. And also, because we're so close to Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and happy birthday to myself. My birthday's actually coming up. And I will talk to you all later. That was weird. Bye now.